Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope that you're well and safe. If you're new here, my name's Emily and I like to create videos around tarot, magic, witchcraft, spirituality, all of those kinds of related topics. I just have a cat with me right now, so that's what the purring is. So in today's video, I wanted to share a slightly different video with you, and I wanted to share a reaction video to The Witches, I wanted to share a reaction video to Roald Dahl's The Witches, the movie specifically, and both movies really, and kind of a comparison. So if you haven't seen either of those films and you'd like to, spoiler alert, there is going to be a lot of spoilers in this video, so if you would like to see it without hearing my opinions, then maybe click off and go and watch it first, and maybe come back if you want to listen and hear. So this might be quite a controversial video actually, because there are things that will come up in discussing both movies about the portrayal of the story, but also the original storybook by Roald Dahl and the problematic aspects of it. So I am coming at this from the perspective of a real witch. I am a practicing witch living in England, and for those of you who are new to the channel, just to give you some context, there are many labels that I probably wouldn't align myself with, but also there are many labels in the witchcraft community that I probably could align with and associate with, but also I do consider myself to be fairly eclectic in my approach. Mostly I follow a kind of folk magic tradition that is fairly eclectic, to be honest with you. I take elements of green witchcraft, kitchen witchery, hearth magic, all of those kinds of areas, because I live in the countryside in Devon in England, and that just tends to be the way that I am going. But I also like to learn about other modalities and other religions and spiritual practices as well. I'm very open-minded, and you know, I really like to hear about other people's experiences as well. I wanted to talk about this film really because I recently saw the new version with Anne Hathaway, and that brought up a lot of things that I wanted to discuss. But then also in relation to the original film with Anjelica Huston that was filmed in the 90s, I wanted to talk about it from the perspective of a real witch, because of the topics that come up naturally with this story, but then also because of my background with it. When I was a child, The Witches was a film that terrified me. I think my father read the book to me when I was quite young, and I know it scared me, but a book is very different to actually being faced with what you see in that film. And I think I was maybe 10 potentially when I actually saw the film on video with one of my best friends, and it really terrified me. Like, it really terrified me. I was really frightened, particularly when Anjelica Huston peels off her mask. I do think I had a kind of fear around people pulling off their masks and revealing their real selves, and this idea that she was this like monster beneath this very beautiful exterior was quite kind of terrifying. And then also all the prosthetics and everything. If you've ever seen that film, you will know how intense it is to even watch that scene. And you know, I was very little, but also the tale and the way that the story was told really stayed with me. The story about the little girl who gets trapped in the painting. I was haunted by this, and I got very scared about it for several months, and I was even terrified that people in my life were witches. I was scared that my mum was a witch, and I think it hurt her feelings quite a bit. So for me, it was a chapter in my childhood. There was another incident that actually happened when I was in middle school. Then later on that very same year, I would have been nearly 10. 9, nearly 10. There was an incident that happened at my school, and I think I was in year 5 in middle school. There was an incident where it was the last day of term or something, and we were all to watch a film, and they filed us into a classroom. I didn't know what film we were going to watch, and they had some chairs on the floor, and they also had tables with chairs on them, and I thought, you know, actually health and safety, that's so not safe. Anyway, they'd stacked it up so the people at the back were on tables and could see, and I happened to be one of those people on a chair on a table, and the film turned out to be The Witches. Now I was absolutely terrified, and I did not want to watch it, and at that point my 9-year-old self was battling inside my head about whether or not I should just watch it and be terrified, or whether I should cover my face with my cardigan and let everybody see how scared I was. And you know what, I just covered my head with the cardigan. I just put the cardigan over my head because I could not watch it. I was absolutely terrified. And at the end, people had seen, obviously, and were talking about it and thought that I was crying or something. I wasn't crying, but I was terrified. And after that, I was kind of scarred again for a little bit longer. I cannot remember when my brain switched from witches are real and they are monsters, as in the story that is in Roald Dahl, to coming to an idea about myself being magical, because I always knew, I always felt magical. I always did create little spells and potions and things myself when I was younger, and I had a fascination with that kind of thing. But I think maybe it was actually when I did see The Craft and I was 11. That film never scared me that much, to be honest. And especially, I know people have issues with The Craft in general, but like the first half of that film really is quite fun and shows what it can be like to be in a coven and to be doing magic and have spells work for you and such. And there's a lot of things in there that aren't real as well. But I think maybe what that might have done for me is show me that like these witches that Roald Dahl created, they are a fantasy monster that is not rooted in reality. But I do think as an adult now, looking at stories like that and any books with witches and monsters in them, it is sometimes challenging to explain to my daughter, this is a witch but not a nice witch, or this witch is a fantasy witch that actually isn't kind to people and doesn't do nice things. Mummy's a real witch and Mummy doesn't hate children, you know, that Mummy's a real witch in the real world, and there are lots of witches like Mummy who believe different things, but Mummy, you know, does her best and does nice magic. And again, that's kind of like black and white and putting all of these like binaries out into the world that I don't really want to be doing either. But how do I explain to my 6-year-old daughter that I'm a witch, but I don't do evil magics like some of these stories are showing? And so that is something that has been going on in my mind recently, because my daughter is approaching her 6th birthday and she has all these questions. She's not seen The Witches, she's not read The Witches, she's probably not going to for a very, very long time. I don't think it's really suitable for her. I think she'd be terrified just like me. But for a long, long time, even in my adult life, I was even afraid to watch that film, and sometimes it would be on Sky and I'd be like, oh, and I'd kind of like click on it and look at it and then be like, no, 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 I can't watch it. So I've been quite scared to watch that film for a very, very long time. And then obviously the new film came out. I thought the trailer looked so fun. Anne Hathaway looked fantastic. Stanley Tucci is amazing. Octavia Spencer, absolutely fantastic. I love the way they changed the period and the setting of the story as well. They switched up. And I just thought it looked really fresh and fantastic. And I didn't really hear any of the news around it until quite recently when I actually sat down and watched it. And right away, one glaring thing that just was so problematic was the way that the movie producers decided to portray the witches as having a limb difference. And after I watched the film, I then stumbled on all of the news about this issue and about the community being very upset, quite rightly, about the way that they had chosen to show the witches as their monstrous form as having a limb difference that actually real human beings do have, or have similar limb differences. And that was really eye-opening for me. As someone who doesn't have a limb difference, I realised this is an opportunity for me to actually learn and do better, because it's not something I've ever had to experience or go through, but it's something I want my children to sort of understand and appreciate about other people. So I found a video on YouTube by a creator called What Vegan Did Next, and this creator actually created 2 videos around the community responding and reacting to the film and the portrayal of the witches in this way, and questioning why that was even chosen. When you start to consider it from the perspective of someone who has a limb difference of some kind, who never ever sees somebody in a film who has a limb difference like them or similar at all, because that's not something that it really is seen until it is an evil monster being revealed. And it just seemed so unnecessary for them to make that decision, especially because in the book, although the witches in the book do not have toes, so that's a limb difference there, and that's, I think, one of the original problems with the book, but we have to remember the context in which it was written. Not particularly an advocate for Roald Dahl. Having read his books when I was a child, I really enjoyed them, but as an adult I can see the problems with many of his stories, and now reading them with my children and knowing that they are being read to my children at school, I do have some questions and concerns around some of the topics that are brought up within his books and the ways in which things are dealt with in the books. That is a separate topic though. The book comes out of a different context than the time we're living in now. But also, even though the book did depict the witches without toes, they all had 4 fingers and a thumb, and they all just had very, very long claws when they took their gloves off. The witches in the book, when they removed their gloves, they still had all of the fingers that they had in the gloves and their thumbs. They did just have scabby hands, like they had itchy, scabby heads when they took their wigs off. I did find that very disturbing that the producers had chosen to make that decision. And if you want to go deeper into that conversation, I would really, really recommend this video by this creator, which I will link below. I will actually link both of the videos below because they are both really worth watching. And I just wanted to add that into the conversation as well because I thought it is such an important topic. And actually in one of those videos, the creator does bring up the aspect of a witch actually not being an evil monster, and that a witch is actually a real person in their own power and sovereignty, and I found that incredibly powerful as well. Listening to these incredible people discuss this topic with such vulnerability, and I found it incredibly moving and really important for me to watch. I was very, very pleased to have found those videos. They also did discuss that actually, although the studio and the producers did not respond in an adequate way to the complaints that were raised about that aspect of the film, Anne Hathaway did respond in what was seen to be a more positive way. I believe that the actress actually did some work with a charity as well to raise awareness, which was happily received. And so for that, I think that there is work happening, but the portrayal still remains within the film. And I believe that it does a lot of disservice to the community by perpetuating this fear around limb differences. And that is one really problematic aspect of it that I really needed to talk about. And I will also say that it is my intention to handle this with respect and care and reverence, and I do hope that I am able to do that and express myself eloquently in a way that is supportive and that is not offensive to anybody. However, if in any way anything I do say is offensive, then I do humbly apologise, and I am someone who would like to know better and do better. So, you know, I would accept that feedback and hear it and be very, very happy to receive that, because I do want to learn and do better as much as I possibly can, whilst also raising awareness and shedding light on these topics. So I would just like to say that as well, that everything I'm saying here is meant to be supportive and respectful at all times. So moving on, the limb difference was one aspect of it that was greatly upsetting. Aside from that, the film itself was fun and interesting. There was a lot more CGI in it than the original. In the original, it is real mice and puppets and a lot of prosthetics and puppets for the witches, and in the newer version with Anne Hathaway there was a lot of CGI, and the Grand High Witch's face was very different. Ended up looking a lot like It, with a very wide, frightening and monstrous kind of smile. All in all, I really don't think these are kids' films at all. I think the largest topic area I wanted to talk about, that I've been tiptoeing around for this whole time that I've been talking, is the way that witches are portrayed, and the way that in media and in society the word witch is still used in a derogatory way to refer to someone as being evil. A witch is always thought of as old, crone-like, hag-like, evil, hate children. All of these misconceptions that are perpetuated, and it does sadden me actually that this story was re-released again really recently, and again this idea about a witch being an evil woman who hates children, it really grates at me. I do feel like these topics come into the idea of the witch wound, and so what I'm really thinking is how, you know, we can start to help others who aren't part of our community to understand these things, and to use that word and to reclaim the word in a way that's respectful for all and that is not exclusive and that doesn't push away other communities, that doesn't push away anyone, that is inclusive of all, and how we can start to unpack some of these ideas around these topics that are more problematic. And essentially, I don't really have a conclusion. I think I just wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about my personal connection to the film and the book and my experience of watching the new film. I wanted to talk about the problematic aspects of the portrayal of the witches, and I also wanted to talk about the problematic aspects of the story in general and the way in which I feel it impacts on our community and on other communities too, and just raising awareness around it really. I'm not sure what the answer is other than, as I said, seeing them as different things, seeing this as a story, and you know, that everyone can choose whether or not they want to watch it. For me, I have watched it and I enjoyed parts of it, and I need to be able to separate what a real witch is to what the witch in Roald Dahl's story is, which is essentially a monster that is not real. And at the moment, that's the only way I can kind of, you know, conclude the topic. I will say also that after I watched the new film with Anne Hathaway, I did watch the original with Anjelica Huston, and I do think, aside from a couple of aspects about the ways in which the story was told, I actually do think the original stands up, and I think Anjelica Huston is certainly formidable. I think her portrayal is terrifying, and I think for entertainment I actually do prefer the original. I would say the acting is fantastic in both films. There's so many entertaining elements to this story, and if it's something that you enjoy and that you want to watch, then that's fantastic, and I really would encourage you to do that, but just to take it with a pinch of salt. And I think that there's a lot in the stories that people can enjoy. I would just love it if we could help others to understand that this is not what a witch is, and that witches aren't evil, that witches don't hate children, and that limb differences and that having a limb difference doesn't make you a monster or something to be feared. It is a really, really damaging aspect of the newer film. And so for that reason, I do think the original film is preferable, in my opinion, but also these aren't films that I'm going to go out and watch again. I'm not planning to read the book with my daughter. I read other Roald Dahl books with my daughter, but not that one. And for me, I think personally I need to draw a line underneath the trauma of having been exposed to that film as a small child and having to clearly come to an understanding of what it actually means to be a witch, and, you know, to slowly continue to unpack the witch wound that is within me, and to help to raise awareness where I can with people who are open-minded enough to listen and to understand what actually witchcraft is and who a real witch is, what a real witch is. So that pretty much brings me to the end of my rambly kind of discussion, reaction to The Witches, the original and the new film, as well as the story by Roald Dahl. I really hope that there's been something of interest and of value here for you. I really do hope that I've been able to shed some light on this topic, but also in a way that has been sensitive and respectful and supportive, because that's all I ever intend from this video. But as I said, I am someone who wants to learn, wants to do better all the time. I believe in equality across the board for all. So thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video and you got some value from it, then please do click the like button, share it with anyone who you think would be interested to talk about this. I'd also love to hear your thoughts below if you've got any more ideas or things that you observed from either of the films that you'd like to unpack or discuss, any experiences of your own that you want to talk about that have relation to this topic. I'd also really, really welcome any feedback or ideas or thoughts or experiences in the comments box below. If you'd like to see more from me around witchcraft, tarot, magic, spirituality, then please do think about subscribing. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit that little bell notification, because that's how YouTube is going to let you know when I create and upload videos just like this. So with all that said, thank you again so much for joining me. I hope that you stay well and safe, and I look forward to seeing you in another video really soon. Take care. Bye. Mwah.